Hello, my name is Kaylee Day and I will be doing my capstone presentation. This presentation is mainly going to be going over smoking cessation, secondhand smoke, and education as an intervention. This project was completed for Florida State College at Jacksonville's Bachelor's in Nurse Science program, and it is mainly directed at associate level nurses or beginning level nurses. So, some of the objectives. By the end of this presentation, the listener will know and understand the prevalence of secondhand smoke, guidelines for smoking cessation, and some evidence-based practice that has to do with smoking cessation. So the purpose for this project is to raise awareness of smoking and secondhand smoking, as well as its health effects. It does not just affect the person who's smoking, it affects everyone who's around them. Then we will discuss the guidelines that every nurse should use to help their patient quit smoking. And then we will discuss the evidence-based practice or the best interventions to use when helping your patient with smoking cessation. So here's some statistics. Smoking is one of the leading causes of premature death around the world. And it's also estimated that every year over 600,000 people die due to secondhand smoke alone. And of these 600,000, 28% of those fatalities, that's 168,000, are children and adolescents. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention states that over $300 billion is spent per year on smoking-related diseases and illnesses. Continuing with these statistics, nearly 1 billion smoke around the world. And in the United States, out of every 100 adults, 15 are smokers. Now I'm telling you all these statistics so that you can really get a grasp on how many smokers there are around the world. And knowing that these smokers, that it doesn't just affect their health, because that smoke gets into the environment and other people breathe it in as well. So who smokes? Well, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention states that people are more likely to smoke with less education, less financial ability, as well as if they're in poverty. This could be because they don't know the health effects of smoke and smoking-related illnesses. So here's my capstone PICOT question. Among children whose parents smoke, that's our population, how does a parental secondhand smoking education or intervention compared to no education or comparative intervention on health outcomes related to secondhand smoke on school-aged children as they develop, which is our time? So, why is this population so important? Well, this population is so important because children are so vulnerable. They can't just pick up and leave an environment or their house. If children have a parent who smokes, they are in that environment 24/7. And by seeing their parents smoke all the time, they might not know it's bad for them. They might think, oh, my mom smokes or my dad smokes, so that must be a good thing. And it could teach them to smoke in the future. These children, they can't prevent their exposure. That is why education is so important for them and their parents as well. If we start educating this population earlier, we could prevent the next generation from having as many smokers. So, for doing research for this project, I went over many books, articles, journals, but I mainly stuck to the Florida State College at Jacksonville's databases, and the two main ones that I searched through were See Now Complete, EBSCO, as well as Health and Nursing, EBSCO. I used several limiters when searching for these articles, like English, published in the United States, published within the last 5 years, full text, as well as peer-reviewed. And some of the key words that I searched were children, family, secondhand smoke, education, smoking-related illnesses. So, doing this research, I read several articles, and I decided to only put the best two in this presentation. The first one we will discuss is the systematic review and meta-analysis by Thomas Baker and Thomas. This is on level one of the evidence hierarchy. And this article went over several different randomized controlled trials, or RCTs, and studies, and synthesized them together to see what similarities occurred. They discussed different interventions for smoking cessation. Reading this article, in the conclusion, they found that education was a viable intervention option and actually worked best if both the child and the parent were educated. Higher intensity programs of education were more successful. So the next article we discussed that I used in my research is the United States Preventative Services Task Force Guidelines for Smoking Cessation. So this task force, they put together some steps that every nurse should follow in order to question and inquire on the patient's smoking status. So the first step is you ask your patient. You ask them, do you smoke? And if they do smoke, what are their smoking habits? Do they do it regularly, every once in a while, only when they're drinking? You have to be very specific. Then you inquire if they wish to quit, and even if they don't want to, you should advise them to quit, and then provide them with education on why, like the health benefits. Then, if they do wish to quit, you should provide them with intervention options. That is why nurses should be very educated on the many different types of interventions that patients could have. They could have behavioral therapy, pharmacotherapy like Nicoderm, anything that's FDA approved, in addition to education, which is always one of the main intervention options. So in conclusion, education is crucial. The United States Preventative Task Force states that you should always first ask your patient whether they smoke. Then if they do smoke, you should inquire on how much and advise them to quit. And if they wish to quit, you should provide them with intervention options. Though through doing this research, it showed that not one intervention was a viable option for all patients, just because everyone is so diverse and there's so many different intervention options. But education did prove to be a very important part of the process. And due to the fact that secondhand smoke by itself causes over 600,000 fatalities per year, and 28% of those fatalities are children and adolescents, if we could even slightly decrease the smokers' population, it would have a great effect on healthcare. It would decrease healthcare costs. We could spread that $300 billion in some other areas of the healthcare field. We could improve the health of our patients and the people around our patients, and we could potentially decrease the nurses' workload, which could allow them to provide better patient care. One thing I did find while doing this research was that there needs to be more research done on the children's aspect. I found much research on parental interventions and smoking cessation, but I think more research needs to be done on smoking, secondhand smoke, and how it affects children. So some thinking questions. Who are more likely to smoke? Why do you think that is? What are some guidelines to help a person quit smoking? What interventions have worked for your patients in the past? Did you find this educational material beneficial? And do you have any suggestions for me to make it better? please post in comments below, as well as I'll have a link to a test you can take to see how well you were paying attention to this presentation. Here's my references.